Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I think we're all back after our stumbles yesterday getting the stream started. We have a Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow, but a couple of data points today, and I think we may still get a somewhat dynamic market relative to what we normally get before an FOMC. So, News Squawk is speaking in my ear. It doesn't sound anything too important, so we're just going to continue through it. Here's the treasuries. We're pushing down again, kind of getting towards some of those, like, scary levels from the beginning of April. A little, it's right in here. So, we're approaching some support. Here's the S&P 500 down big overnight. And this does appear to be concerns about the Iran conflict ramping back up. Talk about that. Oil on the way up as well. Gold and silver. Ooh, that's actually really ugly, and that's almost equal. Actually, maybe larger than some of the largest declines that we've had in the past month. So, yeah, I do not like that look in gold. Did I close my silver chart? What the heck? We're just gonna duplicate it in a new tab, and I move it back over to here. SI. How silver futures is not the first result on that query is a little odd. Okay, so silver isn't quite as bad as gold. I've actually been hearing some bullish things about silver lately, but copper. Ooh, yeah, copper got hammered. Okay, and the Japanese yen. Okay, so no, this is really, really interesting. So the Japanese yen had a rate decision overnight. It was considered hawkish. They held with 3 dissenters saying that they wanted to hike. So the market read that as hawkish, but then it went dovish. Or, well, let's say they read it as hawkish, which is good for the currency, but then they retraced all of that. Maybe for other reasons like the geopolitical conflict concerns. Except for that, normally, you know, the Japanese yen would be a flight to safety asset, and it has not been during this conflict. So, yeah. This is interesting. And the dollar strengthening quite a bit as well here. Oh, and then Bitcoin. We got to check Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin got hammered. It's so funny when you look at it. It's like, well, that's not such a big deal. But there was some ugly sells in here. There were some ugly sells. The crypto people were feeling it. So, yeah, it's only down to 76K from some 79. So not like a huge deal, but the crypto people were feeling it. Trust me. All right. So, man, I really like myself in white, but it makes me so washed out on the stream. I think we just need to go down to 30 on both of these and we should be good. Oh, maybe not. Okay, 30 is fine. Okay, so what's going on with the war? Well, the administration has been talking, and some of the latest reports that have come out have been that they're still very skeptical of the Iranian proposals and that they do not include any discussion over the nuclear materials. It seems that Iran is simply unwilling to give that up. Basically, it's kind of funny because the deal that I keep hearing is like, let's go back to the status quo from before the war. You really think that they're going to go for that? Okay. Well, maybe Iran still thinks that the United States is hurting or freaking out about it. I kind of feel like that the market has maybe moved on, but that could shift. That could shift really quickly, right? That could shift really quickly. Especially tomorrow, we got some big tech earnings in addition to the Federal Reserve meeting. So that could be like a 1-2 gut punch. If all of the big tech companies come in, they're like literally all announcing on the same day. If that comes in bad, that could be a real problem. So, yeah. But the administration is kind of saying, well, if we hold the blockade for another month, it's really going to damage Iran. They have oil wells that were never meant to be able to be turned on and off, essentially. So if you turn it off, it hurts the well. I don't know why that is. Maybe we can do some research on that. But apparent that's just the long and short of it is that another week and Iran starts suffering long-term harm to their oil supply just on its own. Okay. And if that's happening and they're still not more anxious to come in and make a deal, what can you actually do to force them into a deal? I'm not sure if there is anything that you can do except short of full-on invasion. You're looking at an invasion, Fremen. You know what? I thought when they picked what is the actor's name? It's so silly. Christopher Walken. I can't remember Christopher Walken's name. I was really skeptical about them picking him for the Emperor, and maybe it wasn't the best choice, but those scenes with Christopher Walken in them are like my favorite scenes in Dune 2. So you're looking at a full-on invasion, Fremen. That's not how he says it, but did I miss Seth talking about the UAE? No, we're talking about Iran. Iran in a week start suffering long-term damage to their oil supplies because they don't have anywhere to put the stuff that comes out. They can't ship it out. They have to turn off the well, and turning off the well apparently hurts the well, like permanently damages it. So how do you force them to the table if the economic pressures won't do it? Is the discussion that the administration is having. And that seems to be the thing that has really pressure. I mean, you can see the treasuries in particular pushing down pretty hard overnight. So I'm a little concerned. And then again, tomorrow we have a Federal Reserve meeting, and we have all of the major tech companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, like all of these guys. I think it's like 4 of them are all announcing after the bell tomorrow. So there are concerns because the story late last night was that OpenAI is missing their internal targets for AI usage. Basically, they're not getting as much AI usage as they were expecting. They're not making as much money as they were expecting, and therefore will not be able to meet some of their future commitments on infrastructure spend, which means that all of the hyperscalers, the people building the data centers, they don't have as much money as they think. And that kind of investment has been one of the major things driving these stocks in the stock market as a whole. So if this story coming out from OpenAI, from insiders on OpenAI, does turn it into larger weakness in the big tech companies, which, probably should show up in this quarter's earnings. That could be ugly for the market. The thing I will be watching is if Google, for instance, Google and Amazon get hammered really, really hard because of the AI spend thing, do all of the tech companies that they sold because there's no moat and yada, 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 will all of those come back up? Probably not, but we can hope. Right? I can hope, right? Bubble's gonna pop, says Vital. Could be. Like it could be Wednesday is the day. You're totally, it's totally within the realm of possibility for sure. I hate it when my sleeves don't roll up perfectly. I mean, I think that rolled up sleeve is supposed to be a little bit messy. Yeah, I think we're okay. It's not like anybody's gonna see I'm staying working from home today anyways. Still bothers me. Apparently, ADHD, slightly ADHD autistic people aren't the best with rolled up sleeves. I think that's what it is. You got to do like one fold and then kind of let it sit for a little bit, and then kind of adjust. Okay. An interesting uptick. E-mini is kind of turning around, so thinking about it, I do think at this time that a 2001 style crash in the AI marketplace is pretty inevitable. The thing, though, is that the dot-com crash was largely triggered by 9/11. Like, that market was kind of looking a little vulnerable, it was a little bubbly, and then it was kind of on the way to, and then 2001 happened, and right, and they just got destroyed. So, if we don't have as dramatic of a catalyst to cause the AI crash, you might have an AI crash that to many people doesn't really look like a crash. You know what I mean? Like, an AI crash doesn't necessarily mean full-on recession for the rest of the economy. Certainly, though, it should be concerned for a full-on recession too, because it does kind of feel like AI has been like propping this market up. So if you don't have that pillar anymore, shouldn't everything tumble? Guess we'll find out. So I've been thinking, that I think every day. I know not everybody does this, but I think every day. No, I've been thinking, like, where do we need to take the YouTube channel next? And I think I've been at this crossroads before where, like, I had a bunch of content I wanted to make, get out, and then did it, and what's the next set of content that I should make? And I remember one time in particular, I said, well, we need to get into, like, breaking news. And my conclusion with that experiment is that the algorithms that we are dependent on aren't super favorable to the breaking news, at least not for this kind of a channel. So I kind of gave up on that one. But thinking about it, I still kind of think, you know, we do need to try and expand the channel, though. Expand the audience. What we do is very, very niche. It's treasuries, it's order flow. Those two things are very, very niche, especially since on the order flow side, there's other people starting to teach order flow, and it's complete nonsense, and it's absolutely nothing like the stuff that we discuss, right? What's that larger net that we got to pull people in with, right? Well, yesterday, I got an email from one of my kids' teachers that was like, oh, if he doesn't do this assignment and this assignment. Yeah, the alarm worked today, says Ismail. Welcome back, dude. Anyways, I got this email that's like, oh, if your son doesn't finish this assignment and this assignment, he's gonna fail. So I was all ginned up and get home and yell about it. But he had an explanation. I was like, well, there's two different ways that you can do it, and I've been doing it the you would write a report way, and I just haven't turned them in yet, but I'm about to soon, and then that should all change. And yeah, so it's got it under control. I was kind of like, darn, I don't get to yell at kids anymore. Like, really? I just, for whatever reason, is this a part of getting old? You guys tell me. Is just a part of being over 40 that you have a strong desire to yell at children? I don't know what it is. And I can yell at my autistic son, but that doesn't work very well. He's oh my gosh, yesterday there was an accident and he hurt Ethan, and he booked it. He ran so fast. Ethan, or Asher did. I try so hard because when he was young, I was like, okay, you got to teach him that this is not okay and this is not okay. And it didn't take too long for us to realize that, like, no, that does not work because he's autistic. Doesn't matter how much effort you put into helping him understand that that's not okay. He just doesn't change. And so I stopped doing that. So I can't yell at him. Who am I going to yell at? I know. I have a live stream. I can yell at other people's kids. That's what I should do. That's what we should do. I feel like that the internet lacks a father figure. That's what we need here. What do you think about that? So I'm looking at these, like this kid, this clavicular guy. You read that whole thing about how he like OD'd on stream? Holy crap. OD'd, had to go to the hospital. All this crap. And I'm still sitting here going like, oh. I remember we were arguing about it the other day. Somebody on stream was like, no, I really think he's got it right. He's doing everything right. Kind of no. Like, why do I feel that way? Young influencer taking suspicious substances, who would have thunk it? Right. Well, like here's the thing. Is he'll go on stream, he'll go to a club, he'll pick up chicks or whatever. And apparently guys are impressed by this. I don't actually think that anybody is actually impressed by it, because I've seen this thing that a lot of the, especially for people on live streaming, that the people with the largest live streaming audiences are putting the most money into like clipping their stream and pushing it on TikTok. Like this guy literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for clipping. And that's why he's like the top streamer right now. So I think to some extent it is astroturfing. Free thinking adults don't care. It's the impressionable kids with low self-esteem. Well, yeah. And you know, it really feels to me like that the kids really struggle with this. That even the kids that like have huge advantages and are probably going to do really, really well in life will like seriously question like their own, you know, like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't be here anymore, sort of a thing. And then the doomerism among the kids is getting super strong right now too. Like, oh, AI is going to destroy everything. There's no point in trying for anything anymore. There's not going to be any jobs for us. It's just like the future is bleak. It's the way that the kids coming out of high school are thinking right now. And I think that in turn kind of leads to maybe some of those other behaviors. But then on top of that, you're talking about people that, you know, haven't had as much opportunity. I felt like when I was a kid that I didn't necessarily have tons of opportunity to really become super sociable. I learned to become super socially socialable going to raves, especially the campouts. There was more opportunity to talk to people at the campouts. Do teachers of your kid plan us? Dude, that whole thing, I don't even know if I can even begin to unpack that one. That guy was just like the typical Redditor. These guys that I see, like the stuff that he was tweeting, they said, oh, okay, he's a leftist. What is he doing? What's his social media profile? Oh, he's been eating up what, you know, the radical stuff that the Democrats have been saying. And I'm like, oh, what is that? Oh, Donald Trump is a pedophile, rapist, yada, yada, yada. That's like every Reddit thread. Oh, man. So crazy. Let's come back to that one. Here's the thing. Mr. Clavicular. Listen. I know you think you're hot stuff. I've been around. The ladies that you want aren't hanging out at the club. There's some hot chicks at the club. Okay. But that's kind of like a like the people that if I was like a millionaire streamer and I was going to be live streaming me doing nightlife stuff, right? I would be going to like charity balls and things like that. Like there's a kind of higher class networking events where you can meet people that would be better to be like trying to, that's where you can get the really high tier women, you know what I mean? Or at least meet the high tier women's parents. Like, so I'm just not that impressed personally with the stuff that I've seen from his stream. I'm kind of like, you're kind of even like the club is not the place you prove yourself. I mean, it is an okay environment to you know, be sociable and pick people up, but that's a certain kind of person. And if you're going to be a millionaire and you need to get into millionaire culture, you know what I mean? Go do charity. You have charity balls and there's like events every week. If you're like an up and comer in New York and shit, why doesn't he do that stuff? See, this is what the problem is. He doesn't have a really good looking, successful 40-year-old streamer that can kind of show him the ropes and say like, okay, yeah, we're pretty good, but over here, right? Or is it that, I agree, I won't want to marry a party girl, and I got sure of this by being active in the scene, either raves or clubs. No matter if a girl feels FOMO to go to a party, I don't feel comfortable dating her. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty strong. You know, I never seriously looked at any of the raver girls. I mean, I absolutely loved all of the people that I met in the rave scene, but I don't think that I ever seriously thought about a relationship with them. Though it did get close with some of them. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that like if a girl, if I meet them at a rave, that I certainly wouldn't date them. For me, it's probably more, you know, I'm Mormon, and most, you know, Mormon girls just don't do that. That's just the thing. I think I've met like one Mormon girl that was a raver and she was too young. Like, you know, so I wouldn't go as that far. But here's the other thing. I'm not like a millionaire, you know, like it is more a middle class thing. You know what I mean? Like going to the club and flexing at the club is a middle class, upper middle class thing. If you now want to be like a top tier man, like this guy is trying to claim that he is, you got to go to higher stuff. And yeah, the top tier people, they will go to a club, you know, and do the VIP thing and all of that. But the women, they're important, those women. They're not going and picking up girls in the club. And certainly if I was meeting a girl in that environment, why is she there? If she doesn't know anything about the music, then move on, right? I'm totally down with, well, if you really truly love the music, then you're my people. I don't want to know you better. But most of those girls that do that at the club, they're not there for the music. They don't know who's playing. Having a happy family is also a middle class thing. Millionaires would be at their fifth wife. Well, there are some challenges that come there, aren't there? I mean, the thing is that the divorce is way more common than it should be in general, but I'm so much like I'm very, very interested in, for instance, I don't know, Rothschilds, like these families that have had generational wealth, sometimes for hundreds of years. And what are the sorts of things that they teach their kids? And how do they, well, they're very, very strict with their kids. And there's very big expectations of the kids. And if the kids don't meet those expectations, then they're cut out. And when they're younger, the sorts of things that they teach them are like, okay, you need to write, today you need to write a letter to your aunt. And tomorrow you're going to write a letter to this. They'd have them write letters, which is something I would like to do. You could argue divorce is too common because bad-rooted relationships are common. I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. We'll go into this because what am I saying? The larger point that I was trying to make is like, I want to talk about these things. This is just the thing that like consumes me. We've spent some time talking about it on stream. I don't make videos about it because I'm like, well, okay, but I'm a day trading channel, and then if I go and make a video that's like a criticism of clavicular or whatever, like nobody's gonna watch that, right? But there is kind of a road there for me, right? I need to start talking about things like health tips for traders, psychology tips for traders. I have a different approach to that I think could really, really help. And that'll give me the opportunity to share this sort of stuff. So this is the 40-year-old dad era. That's what we are in, I think. Do you think that that's a solid strategy? I guess we'll see. But it's always a subject that kind of sparks some conversation. Diversify into more channels. One about politics, one about life, one for trading. I wish they had enough time to have multiple channels. If one of these channels became big enough that I could make content full time, then I think I would do that. I would have one channel that's purely for political analysis. I'd have one channel that's purely for business, computer hardware, and accessories. At the very least, 3 channels just on that. And then maybe there'd be another channel that would just be my personal channel, and I could go more into my philosophies on life even deeper, right? Okay, so relationships. I wish I could like cite some research. I've definitely seen some numbers that back this idea up, but a very large portion of failed marriages come down to attachment disorders. So this whole thing that like if everybody is the same, then everything is kind of vulnerable to the same problem. So you need people to be a little bit different, right? So attachment, there is like the healthy attachment. The way that they show this is like there's a famous experiment where they take a 3-year-old kid and they go to a doctor's office. And then, you know, when mom's there, the kid will go and play and then come back and check back with mom and then go back out again. But if mom leaves, then the child is understandably upset. But how they react after that differs. For some kids, the healthy attached child is they're upset when mom leaves, and then when mom comes back, mom is able to calm the child. There are other kids, this is called the avoidant attachment one, that what notices that mom leaves and just completely ignores them. They want to be independent. They don't check back with mom as much. They feel that they have to be independent, and if you try and get close to them, that kind of makes them uncomfortable. So this is the avoidant attachment. And then there's the anxious attachment, which is they cling to mom the whole time. And then when mom leaves, they're super upset. And when mom comes back, they still cannot be calmed down. That's the anxious attachment. Okay. And some of this is genetic. Okay. But some of it can also be socialized. If you are unsure whether your emotional needs will be met as a child, then you tend to come out as the anxious one. Right. Whereas if you learn that you're completely responsible for all your emotional needs, then you become the avoidant one. Right. And when you get an anxious person and an avoidant person together, you have problems, because the anxious person is just constantly wants to be close as possible. And the avoidant person becomes very uncomfortable with that. And that causes the anxious person to become even more anxious. And so there's like this circular effect where these two kind of drive each other crazy, right? And so the way that a lot of marriages end is the anxious person isn't able to overcome their anxieties, drives the avoidant person away, and eventually the avoidant person leaves. And they will go into another relationship and be like, oh, why did I do that? That was so dumb. But then anytime anybody, and these are the people that anytime the avoidant one, anytime a relationship gets serious, right? Like they meet the perfect person, everything's going well, but then right before it would be turning into a real relationship, they run away. And one of the problems that you get in the dating world, because if you're the healthily attached person, those people tend to be very comfortable getting into relationships and get into relationships very quick. The anxious person, all they can do is think about getting into a relationship, right? So a large portion of the dating market are those avoidant people. And we in society kind of glamorize that for some reason, right? In the modern day, it's like, hey, go out and pick up as many people, sleep around. Yeah, like that's the empowering thing. It's not empowering to form strong relationships and have a family. That's not empowering. Right? But culture doesn't celebrate that. And so they're almost encouraging people to act in this avoidant manner. So attachment disorders are a very, very large part of divorces out there. Okay. And the other cause of divorce is differing goals. Like if you're trying to go a certain direction in life and the other person is not along with that, isn't supportive, I don't feel like for instance, if you want to be a day trader, it is not necessary that your spouse is just obsessed with that goal, as obsessed with that goal as you are. Oh yes, I want you to become a successful trader too. I totally support you. I'm going to do everything that I can to support your dream to become a successful day trader. Like, no. In fact, maybe it's better that you don't have that. I don't know why. I haven't had that, but that's not necessary. But you can't have them be undermining it, be against it. oh, I don't like that you do this. I never wanted you to do this. I wish that you would stop. I'm going to do everything in my power to make it uncomfortable for you to do this thing, right? That's a problem. And when people have these differing kind of goals, you want to move to New York and they don't, or whatever the thing is, you're going to have disagreements. But there are certain disagreements that just become too big, right? These days, I'm sure politics is a lot of it. Yeah. So those are the two major causes of divorce. So if you understand the things that are the most important to you, like for me, well, I go to church, so I have to have a girl that is, is also going to church, and my priority is the family. So I also need somebody whose priority is to have a family, right? And those two things on their own is enough. Everything's cool, right? That's the largest causes of divorce. And I think there's some of these other things, like, there's stuff going on, like social media is driving us crazy. There's some issues with wealth and things like that. But I think if you deal with those first two things, that you have common life goals and that you understand your attachment style and are able to have a compatible relationship through your attachment styles, you avoid the biggest minefields. I see this more and more even by language. It really is. When I was in the singles scene, I really saw this a lot. And there was many times where I saw a girl, like I immediately could kind of tell, because like the first one or two kind of interactions I had with women after being divorced was like that. Like I was feeling super anxious, and then right when things would get serious, all of a sudden they're pulling away a little bit, and in the past I would have been like, oh, that means that I need to try harder, like they want me to chase them or something like that. And I have shifted to, no, if they do not show signs that they are securely attached, I'm out. And that is what led me to my spouse, is that she was by far the most clearly securely attached person that I had met in the dating scene. That's why I pursued that one deeper. Oh, you didn't know that I was married twice? Yeah, I was married twice. Yeah. So my first wife. Should I tell this? I guess I'll tell this story because you haven't heard this story. You should know this story. You're gonna be like, oh wow, I learned so much about stuff today. My first wife was obsessed with having children. Nothing she cared about more. All she thought about her whole life was having children. She had one of those like polycystic ovarian syndromes where you will often like have multiple eggs deploy at a time, so much more likely to have twins. And she fantasized about that so much, like having twins or triplets. That was like her dream, dude. Seriously. And for the first 2 or 3 years where we're getting settled, okay, we don't want to have any kids. Then when we decided we were going to have kids, we start doing the thing, and it wasn't happening. Maybe and the doctor said, well, you both have fertility problems, and the combination of you two together makes it really hard to have kids. So in order to have kids, she was going to have to lose a ton of weight, and then we were probably going to have to do in vitro. So we were working on getting into a place where we would be fertile enough to have kids. And there's something called the 7-year itch. And that's basically exactly what happened. Because about 7 years in, and by the way, she's a fireball, my first wife. She's like, she was always saying the crazy thing, like it was entertaining, it was fun, but she was impulsive. She was a real personality. Let's put it that way, right? And But after 7 years, it was just like, oh. So the reason I was explaining that was she went through so many jobs. Oh my gosh. She could not keep a job. She would just go from job to job to job. One of the things I found out that she had done before she had met me was like she was in traffic and somebody cut her off or whatever and flipped her off, and she got so mad that she just rammed her car into the other guy. Like at a stoplight. She was crazy. She was crazy. Anyways, so she was constantly changing jobs, and one time she changed a job, and I think she just kind of thought, oh, maybe this thing, you know, I'm doing pretty well at this job and I can be on my own, and I'm just going to go and be on my own or go with somebody else. And she ran away. But I really think a lot of it was 7-year itch, because she came back and told me like that she deeply, deeply regretted leaving. That she knows that it was wrong. Like what she did to me was objectively wrong. Like my salvation is at risk because I did that sort of wrong. And, you know, she wanted to fix it. But of course, by that point, I was like, no, I can't trust you anymore. I take you back. And she got remarried, and I think she's okay now. But last I checked, she basically knew that she could not have kids. And the weight, you know, because she put on more and more weight as we were married. It was another problem. She just did not have her eating under control. Again, impulsive. Probably she was ADHD, and I just didn't realize it. And maybe if we had given her ADHD medications, it would have been completely different. That's the sad thing about it to me, is like looking back and realizing like probably she's more ADHD than me in some respects. Impulsive decision making, right? ADHD symptom. Could have been different. So when we couldn't have kids, that's when we would spend a lot of time, because my thing was being a DJ at that time. So she would come with me to all of these events to listen to other people play, so that we could network and get gigs. And she was the perfect person to do that with. And it was a lot of fun. So that's what happened. I would say if there's one trait, though, that'll help you, one trait in a spouse that will help you as a day trader, it's low neuroticism. Like most women have some degree of neuroticism. It's just, that's the stats. Okay. But there are women out there that are low in neuroticism. And as a trader, if you can find those women, you'd be better off. Because it really takes certain kind of person for you to be putting money like that on the line, and they're just, it's fine. You lost this much, it's fine. Doesn't matter. They don't care. Low neuron. My first wife was not that. Too impulsive. Then yeah, but you know, it was I don't know, maybe it was a necessary thing for me though, because you know what happened after that was I had to go back on the dating scene. So I learned a lot of interesting things just about the local Utah scene, because you're not supposed to get divorced. Utah has like the lowest divorce rate in the nation. Okay, you're supposed to stay together and sort it out. So I kind of saw all those problems, and then Tinder was kind of a new thing at the time. So I got on Tinder, and, you know, it forced me to face all of these sorts of things, like understanding attachment and where I had issues with attachment, and how to like build close, intimate relationships with people and things like that. So it was all things that I needed to do. And then about a year into that, something like that, was when we got married, and sometime after, somewhere in that transition, because I think I started day trading before that. Like I left Goldman, and then I was like, okay, now I should day trade, right? So it was, I started day trading after I met her, but I think before I married her. Let's see here. Did I miss any comments? Andre, at least where I am from, things changed in the last few years, and other guys have seen this too. Now women chase more than men. I've been in a 3-year relationship and a 2-year relationship before. Oh, how did I meet? Oh my gosh, how did I meet my first wife? Is such a stupid story too. I used to, when I was a kid, I spent all my time on internet relay chat on IRC. And one of the places that I would hang out, because I always used the online username, the White Dragon. So I was into dragons and stuff. And so there were some chat rooms that were for people that were into that. I kind of very quickly learned that it's like furry adjacent stuff. So like some of the people in those chat rooms were furries. And this is why I despise furries. You have no clue. I really truly despise furries, guys. I've seen so much awful degenerate behavior from furries. Do not let your kids, I mean, if you're an adult and whatever, you're fine, but do not let your kids hang out in furry spaces. Seriously, it is not a place for kids. You're begging for your kids to be like groomed and shit going into furry places. All right. So anyways, so, you know, I kind of didn't like that, and, you know, moved to some other areas, some places that were, you know, drive out the furries and stuff. I hate them because they frequently abuse huskies. Oh my gosh. That's so bad. There's crazy stuff in the furry community. It really is. Like, it has, every community has its problems. Furry community has more problems than your average community. So, you know, I started going around to some other places, and I met this one girl in one of those chat rooms that happened to be LDS. So she introduced me to this LDS chat room, and I tell you what, this LDS chat room was kind of weird too, because the person that ran it was batshit crazy. Was like everybody that got on her bad side. You know, there are people that get in a community like that, and there'd be people that were in the community and got banned and left the community or whatever. Like that always happened, right? But this was like there was a stream of disaffected people that had left the community and been banned, and every time that they do, then the leader of the chat would be talking about all of the awful things that they were doing and why they had to get rid of them and stuff. It was just always kind of like that. It was crazy. But it was a smaller chat room, and it was all LDS people. So I met this one girl, Tonks, and they saw a picture of me, and they thought I was cute. I don't really think that I looked that cute when I was younger, but I think I underestimated myself. You know, like there's nothing about my face or anything that's like unusually attractive or anything. It's just kind of like you're an average person, you're taking care of yourself. There will be girls that like you generally. And these, so she had like a man wall. There's guys that she liked. She would print out pictures of them and put them on her wall, right? And her friend came over and is like, who's this guy? Because she really, really liked that guy that she saw on the wall. So, oh, this is my friend online. You should meet him. So that's how I met my wife, was through that. And she would flirt and talk to me for a long time. And this was all like when I was like a teenager, right? This is all like 17 years old, something like that, right? So I would talk to her, and she would always like hyper flirt with me like that, and it was fun and everything. And then, many years later, like when I was like 24 or something like that. So it was 2016. Yeah. Anyways, my later 20s. And actually, why am I questioning myself here? Oh, because it wasn't 2016, it was 2012. That's right. 2012. Yeah. So it was like 26, 27. You know, I started talking to her again for whatever reason. I hadn't seen her in years. I started talking to her again. And then we met up. So that's how I met her. I met her on a chat room. And I met my current wife on Facebook. The weird thing about that one was I dated so many people on Tinder, like really so many people on Tinder, but I met my wife from a singles group on Facebook. So the funny thing on that one is that, you know, Facebook always trying to get me to be on Facebook more. And I maybe visit Facebook like once a week now and just kind of scroll through things. Nothing's really happening. Get out. Shows me too much of people that are you know, politically captured and whatnot. So I don't really like Facebook anymore. But it thinks, well, when you were the most active, it was because you were in dating groups. So it will show me posts from LDS singles groups that I'm not even a part of. And it will show them. It's like, are you trying to get me to break up again? So that I'll be back on the scene and I'll spend more time on Facebook? Is that what you're trying to do, Facebook? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. But I see some funny stuff, though. I see some funny stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not single anymore. You never listen to dating advice from a divorced man. I tell you what, man. Being divorced and everything forced me to get good at it. Forced me to get good at. I learned so much from that experience. That, and then having a hard time being father to stepchildren, and then having trouble having kids, and then having a kid, and then one of those kids being autistic. Has changed me so much. It's really crazy to think about. Now, on the other hand, if there's a reason to not listen to me for dating advice, it's because I'm a Mormon, and therefore what I'm doing is probably fundamentally different from what a lot of people are trying to accomplish with relationships. Right? We date to get married and have children. That was the intention. Everybody else that I'm interacting with, their intention is to meet somebody that they can have children with. Makes the game different. Personally, I think that everybody would be a lot better off if that's what everybody did. But it is not what everybody does, and it probably never will be anymore in America, so... that might make some things that I say about that stuff unrealistic for other people. I did not have a hard time finding dates. I went on basically 3 dates a week for a year, for over a year. Dated hundreds of girls. Most guys won't be able to do that because they're younger and you don't have as much of an advantage when you're younger, and they're not Mormon or in a conservative area where there's girls looking to do that. And more women want to go into the corporate world, which I think is crazy, but
block cell.
You know, so can I share probably an unpopular opinion, but something I've kind of been thinking about lately, is that, you know, this whole thing, feminism, really is derived from, hey, you get together with a guy and you give up all your hopes and dreams to have children. And then you raise the kids and you get old and then he dumps you and you don't have any skills, any money, nothing. And you just left destitute. Right? And kind of what happened was that first the divorce rate went up, and then, you know, that kind of thing started to happen more and more and more. Right. Whereas before you would just stay married, but maybe you were like in an abusive marriage or you were just very unhappy. So if you know, divorce is that much of a risk, then you have to pursue your own career. For sure. Right? What are you going to do to protect yourself, right? I think, though, personally, the risk is worth it. If the things go well, it is you have children and a spouse that you love and you grow old together, it's worth the risk. Just me. Let's see in another 20 years when all of the millennial women because that was really the generation that really turned into like, I'm going to pursue my career first. Right. And then by the time they were ready to have kids, they're too old. So they're never going to have kids. There's going to be a huge drop in population after the millennials are gone. And there's going to be those women that have been singles their whole life, and then we'll see how they feel. Right? Even if we had mad about money and housing prices and all, the truth is that 100 years or so ago or before that, it was harder to take care of yourself by yourself, and this helped marriages stay. Yeah. Today, no matter what, everyone can take care of themselves and it's easier to leave. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say like you get divorced and then life can be pretty awful for some women, but it's certainly you're in a better space today than you would have been 50 or 100 years ago. Yeah. And that is maybe having some of the effects. I definitely think like the bigger thing still, like the bigger theme is that the world tends to be better explained by the microstructural effects. That the game is set up in a certain way, and here is the outlays for people. They're going to tend to behave in a certain way that is in line with what's most advantageous to them and what they are incentivized to do. That explains people's behavior better. There are some things like, you know, men have certain tendencies, women have certain tendencies. They're, you know, the differences are not huge, but there's enough that there can be pretty significantly different outcomes. But more of that behavior is explained by the way that the rules are set up. And even the differences in how men and women are you can kind of see in the evolutionary biological game, you know, how those, you can look at the microstructure to understand how that psychology comes about. Right, so. Now, most of them overlap, but the tails show the difference. Yep. Almost all of the very agreeable people are women. Almost all of the very disagreeable people, especially the very disagreeable people, are all men. The most neurotic people are almost all women. A guy can be very neurotic. I think that I'm probably more neurotic than your average person, especially if I was not on medication. Oh, do we get a headline here? Okay, Trump is tweeting about Iran and it's a positive headline. T1 Britain, I got Jigsaw. I'm trying to decide on data feed and broker. I hear MPO data is, wait, oh, do you mean MBO? Market buy order data? Okay, so this is a good question. So, hold on, let's see how this goes through here. Iran has just informed us that they are in a state of collapse. They want us to open the Hormuz as soon as possible. This kind of contradicts some of the headlines that we heard overnight. So he doesn't note that he didn't say we will open it back up, but just that they're hurting. I used to think that I am neurotic, and I used to like staying angry or depressed when I felt so also about anxiety and other things, but I see today that I am more resilient than most people I've met. So you know what I see in myself about this particular thing? I still feel that I'm probably more neurotic than the average person. But when like things aren't going very well at work or with the economy or things like that, you know, I will talk to other people and, you know, they're very unhappy about things. And I tend to just be like, yeah, what happens, happens. It's just the way that things go. And there's especially things like, well, I don't like this CEO did this, or this CEO did that, or this business people did that. And I'm always kind of looking at it from the perspective of, well, what do you actually have to do to run a company? Like, I think that a lot of people don't understand how, like, what a CEO actually does, like how much control they actually have over a company. Because really what it comes down to is you're managing managers and you're setting strategy. So there's only so much you can do, and a lot of the things that they actually have like a real control over are things that most employees don't even realize that that's, you know, why the culture is like that or why decisions are done, like things like that. So, you know, I'm constantly in this like, oh, okay, these are things that beliefs that people have that I know are incorrect from my knowledge of business in the stock market, that will prevent them from ever really having like true, you know, like they could never become an entrepreneur type of a thing. But I don't think that has to do with neuroticism, right? I think that I'm just, that maybe they're acting more neurotic in those cases just because I'm like more used to it. You know what I mean? Okay, anyways, let's answer the question about market by order data. So the way that the data works, my data is not market by order data. So what will happen is it will send a message that says there's 6,000 contracts at 25.5. And then every time that you're seeing this change, there's another message being sent saying what the current total number of orders on the bid is at that time, right? The problem with that is if I put an order in here, like I put it down here, and I'm 5,160 in queue. Okay, now some have added on top of that. Okay, so now I'm not the last person in the queue. Now let's say that that goes back down. Okay, so now it's 49.55. How much of that was actually in front of me versus behind me? How do you know? You can't know for sure. So platforms like Jigsaw try to estimate it by saying that like it's like a third, which is actually a pretty good estimate, and it's probably a little bit too stingy. Okay, but if you're an algorithm, knowing exactly where you are in the queue can make a big difference. Like if I want to cancel this or leave it there or whatnot, right? So what market by order does is instead of saying the total amount that's on the bid or the offer, it says there's a limit order at 25 half that canceled, and there's a limit order at 25 half that just added, and you're seeing all of the individual orders that make up that. So if that 5,000 there, if like 3,000 of that is all one guy, with market by order data, you can see that. Okay, so that's what market by order data allows you to do. It also, because it will say like there's an order here, maybe somebody, instead of adding or canceling their order, they edit an existing order. You will see it come through as an edit. And there are some situations where you will see a market order come through that was an edit. How is that possible? Isn't it just you send a market order that's a new order? Well, what it is it's a stop being converted into a market order. So you can see how much of the volume that's just been executed was triggered stops. This is another thing that you can see. And maybe that's useful. Unfortunately, I don't have that data, so I haven't been able to do any investigation as to whether there's an edge in that. And I've never seen any empirical studies suggesting that there is an edge in it, but I have seen a study with some algorithms, you know, doing kind of the machine learning thing on the book that showed that the MBO data improved the effectiveness of the algorithm. So there is some edge to the MBO. But the question really is, MBO is better, but is it worth $100 a month is the real question. And I think especially for a beginning trader, where you're probably not going to be making money either way, because pretty much everybody loses at first, it's probably not worth it to shell out $100 a month for MBO data. And I don't spend that much for it. And honestly, I'm not convinced of how much edge that can have for a human. If it's an algorithm, those things matter, but for a human, like MBO was really designed for the algos. Yeah, I was saying, yeah, I think that's the study I was thinking about. That sounds like it was a neural network, and it had some advantage using the MBO data. But that's like I've only seen one study on that. So it was a long time ago too. Sierra Charts costs 50. Yeah, with Sierra Charts, all of their prices kind of are deceptive though. You would have to put together like the platform like everything together and compare it to everything together with somebody else. I think though that with Rhythmic, you're spending $100 a month. Spend $100 a month plus $50 a month with Jigsaw, so you're spending $150 a month. And I don't know, what are you spending with Sierra Charts? Maybe it is cheaper. Every time that I go and I look at their prices, it's so confusing. I really think that that like their whole thing is kind of structured to confuse people. Just me. let's not go into their forum if prices are going. It's an interesting platform, but in the end, if I'm building my own platform, I am totally all in on competing with them. I think I can beat them. Yes. What would you? Well, so which data you choose as a beginner is not a huge deal, but 90% of people are going to be choosing between CQG and Rhythmic. I like Rhythmic. If you're going with you've got Jigsaw, then you're not going to mess around with CR charts. So probably is you could just go to Edge Clear and do Rhythmic, or you could go to Amp Futures and do Rhythmic. But it depends on some things. Like for instance, maybe you want to scalp equity indexes. If you're going to scalp equity indexes, you might want to go over to CQG, because with CQG you can spend $10 extra a month and get the other indexes like tick and things like that show you like what percentage of stocks are moving up versus down and that sort of a thing. And there's some basically internals is I think what some people call them. And there's some interesting data that you can kind of pull out of that I wouldn't say gives you an edge, but what puts you on par, can really, really help you with your trading. So if I was going to do equity indexes, maybe better to go with CQG. On CR charts, I've had I thought that CR charts only supported the Denali data. CR charts downloaded a lot of historical data and made a lot of requests to Rhythmic, and my data got blocked for a week. Huh. I thought that at this point you can basically only use CR chart with their data, but I don't spend a lot of time over there, so I don't really know. CQG, it's the same. It's like 20. So then the other thing is you can choose which market, right? So like if you get the bundle, which is you know, so that you can see both the equity indexes, the treasuries, and the commodities, it's like $40 a month now, I think. It used to be 30, now it's 40. I've not used it in 2 years. Well, I don't know. 2 years isn't that long. Yeah. One of the things I was talking earlier was like, you know, what we're doing is really niche. Order flow is becoming a bigger subject in the day trading community, but even though it's growing, you're unlikely to see it get too popular because you have to pay for the data. You're trading on the CME, and the CME basically requires that everybody pay this data fee. So that's going to keep most day traders out. I get it. Like when you're starting, you're sitting here thinking like, oh, not only do I have to put a bunch of money into that I'm putting at risk, but I'm also picking up like, you know, somewhere around $100 a month. $100 a month is a pretty expensive hobby, I think. It's cheaper than a lot of other hobbies that men spend their time on, like cars. But in my book, it's still a pretty expensive hobby. You should pick up handwriting. That's a relatively cheap hobby. You can just buy a $20 pen and a $20 pad of paper, and you're good. And you never have to spend money on the hobby again. Well, not ever again, but you can spend a lot less per month than the average person. Okay, AMP versus Edge Clear. Edge Clear, you're going to pay more for commissions, but you get better support. And also, like all of their day trading margins and so forth are different. Edge Clear requires you to have more money to let you trade, basically. AMP is like, I think you can start an account now at AMP with like $300 or something like that. When I started out on AMP, and I used them for a long time. But eventually I had enough issues with them. I got fed up with them. And then I moved to Edge Clear, and I've literally had problems. Man, it's been a while now. I think because I've been on Edge Clear for like over 5 years. And I've had a problem like once. Versus with AMP, it seemed like it was every month there'd be some sort of weird issue that disrupted my trading. By the way, I'm noticing like I'm at that -1 sigma, but that's like from a previous day, so let's clear that out. Really? Oh, okay. Yes, that is correct. Well, I want to come in here to Zero Hedge and see what is their headline, their take on this latest thing from Trump. Trump not open to Tehran's latest proposal as tank tops loom. Claims Iran informed us they are in a state of collapse. I was just reading this. Somebody in the Discord chat fixed FOMO entries with 5-minute Mark Douglas pre-trade ritual. Losses now less than 1% versus 10%. Before, what's your psychology fix? Well, I mean, if you're having 10% losses before that, probably fix that on its own. But I think that like most people's kind of approach to psychology, you know, like understanding yourself and like having more control in the moment, that is kind of more of a technical analysis thing, right? Like if you're doing technical analysis and the edge is something that you really can't see in the moment, that makes it really, really hard, right? But you got to understand that Mark Douglas was swing trading. He was talking to swing traders. It's a different thing, day trading, right? Have an edge. For us, for day trading and using an informational edge, I think the psychology is more about being your best, right? You need to come in every day rested, and you got to be sleeping, eating, exercising. All of these things contribute significantly to how effective you will be at making complex decisions in a fast-moving environment. Right? That's what you have to get good at. And there are other psychological things, but these kind of come down more to beliefs, your approach to learning, your approach to collecting information. And it's worth talking about your personal life and things like that, because those will have an effect, right? If you have a bad home situation, that's going to very negatively affect your day trade. If your wife hates that you day trade and she's going to become an impediment to it, then day trading is just not for you, right? I think the correct word is resilience. Well, yeah, because when you lose, it's going to negatively affect your decision making, right? The solution to that one is stop trading, right? If I come in and I take it like once or twice and it's not working, I'm done. Because I'm coming in and I'm looking for something, I have a specific theory about why the market is going to move, where the orders are going to come from. And if I'm not seeing the orders come in the way that I want, then I just stop trading. So it's pretty cut and dry. So this whole thing about like sitting in a position for hours and sweating it out and all this kind of, I used to do that, but I don't do that so much anymore, right? The psychology thing became a huge marketing move. I heard some say 10% strategy, 90% psychology, and it just pisses. Yeah, oh, it totally does. Yeah, you can have all the psychology if you don't have expected value. The psychology thing is totally a cope for not having an edge. 100%. Because let me tell you what, when if you work at a bank, okay, and you're scalping for a bank, you know that you have an edge. It's a completely different game, man. That last tick up looked really strong to me. But that is still just kind of recovering some of the downside on, like that open up there at 0.0 half, or 0 half rather, is just the extended open, so. Oh, what is this? I missed this one. UAE exits OPEC as Iran chaos triggers nationalistic realignment among producers? Huh. That's interesting. Something that just came over on my news squawk was one of the Iran news agencies saying that like 52 ships had come through the strait since the blockade. I think suggesting that the U.S. blockade has not been effective. Like they're trying to convince people to try and run the blockade. But this headline to me just kind of reinforces the headline that we're getting from Trump that Iran is facing internal collapse. Which to me means like it's Mad Max over there in a week. Well, yeah, I don't know if you were here earlier, Andre, but the reason we were talking about it was because I was saying, you know, what I should be doing for my content is I should be talking more about the health and psychology sides of the trading. Because I feel like I've given you like the best possibly can on the other side, you know. We have those videos that explain why the market behaves the way that it does. It explains the order flow, and all you can do after that is just play the game and learn from reading the news every day, watching the order flow every day, and building up that experience, right? So, you know, the kind of videos that I'm thinking about making are like, you know, well, we can do a day in the life sort of a thing, health tips, that sort of a thing. Talk about that sort of stuff. Like, I think something that really, really helps is you've got to be fit, and you want to be doing something that really, really will get you to like your maximum heart rate. Basically, so that when you're in a trade that's really tense, you know, and your body's going into this like I'm in bodily harm sort of a thing, it's not something that's completely foreign to you because you're pushing your body all the time. Fortunately, people push back on empirical information I got at work, people trading ICT or SMC, and I told them what liquidity really is and why they don't trade in the first minute of a session. I showed them JP Busho. Oh, you showed them Busho and presented the microstructure literature. And I also traded in front of them, and they see I do good, and they still push back on it. That's pretty wild, right? Yeah. I just kind of, I feel like going that way, maybe it's more a personal thing, is I see all this stuff going on constantly, and I'm just constantly like, what the F is wrong with people? Why isn't there anybody coming out and telling them how dumb this is? It's just like, the internet needs a dad. Is kind of how I feel. So like, this is maybe an opportunity to shift into talking more about those sorts of things. I deframed their objections to not enter. Yeah, it's just. It's really interesting that like people don't believe the things they believe because of the evidence, do they? So I think when it comes to the ICT thing in particular, I think that it's more like, what is the fundamental belief that they have about the world that attracts them to that, right? And so a lot of people in the modern day have this zero-sum game kind of mentality about everything. And so they think, well, I'm trading and I'm not making money. It must be because somebody else is doing something to undermine me. And so they develop this whole idea in their head that, oh, I'm being pushed in by the big market maker into some sort of a trap, right? Well, I mean, there are some kind of interesting behaviors around those things, but they aren't the way that ICT thinks that they are. And they happen because of the structure of the market, not because it's some sort of predatory trap thing, right? So if we understand that's kind of why they're approaching that thing, then to move them, we have to do something much more difficult, don't we? We kind of have to change their view of the world from one that is zero sum and everybody else is a competitor and out to get me, to one where things happen largely because of the rules of the game, the way that the market is structured, right? And that it's not zero sum, that anybody can be successful by working together with other people. maybe not. Maybe the place to be successful isn't in day trading, but you can go and you can start your own business. You can, right? This is why I think they come down on where they do. We need them to lose money so we can make money, though. Well, here's the thing, Smoker. Like, the thing that's so funny about all of that is that in the markets that we are trading, the primary customer is hedgers. People that are basically planning on losing money. They're basically, they have to come in and hedge themselves against certain possibilities. And they're accepting that in some situations, they won't make as much money because they hedged. Like, they would have made more of a profit if they didn't hedge. But they have to do that to protect themselves in some situations, right? And they don't know what's going to happen, and they don't know all of the flows. But you do. So there's absolutely an opportunity. You're providing a service for them, right? And they pay you for that service if you're actually informed, if you actually know where that market's going. But most retail traders just don't know enough about their market to actually be informed like that, you know? Like, it's wild. And what is that? Like, if we were still floor trading, you would know these guys. You would be like talking to them every day and talking to them about their business. And like, yeah, in some cases you're trading against them, but you would all know each other. And to some extent, you kind of understand that, yeah, you want to make money, but if the hedgers went out of business, there wouldn't be any business anymore. So you don't want them to go out of business. And they're the same way. Like, they don't want everybody that's providing liquidity to get destroyed, because then there's no liquidity for them to execute into. It's symbiotic. When I told them I have a model and look for liquidity for execution, they said, wow, me too. And when we, yeah, and I just don't use the term liquidity anymore because of that, right? I'm looking at my shirt. There's this, I'm getting advertisements for a different kind of shirt that kind of has a more sharp collar. The collar stays sharp. And I'm like, I need to get those shirts. I like when it gets flapping. And there's so many different time frames trading that there's plenty of opportunity for everyone. Yeah. If you actually have an edge, like that's the... Right. We used to think, you can build an edge just from technical things. The robots have kind of squeezed that all out of the market. So now it's back to, you need to understand your market and be able to predict where it's actually going. It's hard, but it can be done. And if you can do it, there's a lot of money for you. So that person doing that successfully might not be retail traders, but there's always going to be money there for that. I don't know. Part of it is also that we were all kind of sold the dream in the 80s and 90s that just doesn't exist anymore. Right? And so a lot of what you see online is people trying to cope with that. I mean, to some extent, I myself am coping with that, right? That's what I wanted to do. And then I kind of come in and find out, it's not really that, it's this. And what do you do at that point? Well, I decided that I still loved doing it so much that I was going to accept what the market is and do the best that I could with what it is. I'd love to make money from Head and Shoulders without selling shampoo. And then 2020 came along and everybody was like, oh, well, here's my opportunity to become a day trader. You know, well, like one of the funny things to me is that there is a pretty large group of people that are making money from trading stocks. They're just not day trading. They're managing positions on higher time frames. But the retail, from the metrics that we've been getting, have been doing really well relative to the hedge funds. They've kind of been pushing the hedge funds around. They let the hedge funds get in overextended positions and then like buy the dip or whatever. And it wasn't until this Iran thing that it really abated in the retail sector. Where the retail finally gave up on buying the dip. Everywhere before that, the hedge funds would be selling and the retail would buy the dip, and they were the ones that made money. And I've done pretty well in my stocks. Just, I'm pretty much buy and hold, but I've done really, really well in my stocks. I always wonder how many traders on a percent basis made enough money to retire on GME. Oh, probably hardly anybody. Dude, GameStop, don't get me started on that one, because that one just pisses me off. Like, I was so excited when it happened, like, oh, there's these people coming into the market and we'll understand how the market really works and it'll be a positive thing. You know, push us into a world where, you know, there's people are more actively involved in investments. And what did it turn into? Everybody just turned to conspiracy theories, and the whole thing turned into a scam to enrich Ryan Cohen instead of rebuilding the company. It pisses me off so much. Thinking that like they got so much money from these retail traders, and he didn't do jack shit with it to help the company. And now he's out there like the board members. Did you hear this thing a couple of weeks ago where they're like, you know, in order for Ryan Cohen to continue spending his full attention in GameStop, we need to give him a larger incentive. Okay. And you've been doing what for the past 5 years? Like, come on. Oh, that in particular really makes me angry. You see, I think the thing that makes most people angry on Reddit is seeing other people be successful. That doesn't bother me. I want to see people be successful. I want to see people be successful in markets and entrepreneurship, especially. Go and take risks and get rewarded for it. But when people are enriching themselves directly at the expense of other people by basically defrauding other people, that pisses me off. It makes me angry inside. Probably can't see it from the outside, but I just... I also think that about 10 to 15% of the online trading community is just looking for clout and maybe never traded. There's a lot of churn. I think that what most people do is, even if they're not consciously realizing it, they come in and they realize what is required to actually be successful with it, and they decide it's not for them. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship too, though, right? So most people come in, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, but then when they realize what it takes, they chicken out. I'm just kind of realizing like, oh, it'll be time to go, except for that we don't have to. Oh. Did you prepare an article to read? Oh, that's a good point. This would be a good time for us to start reading. But I really hadn't seen anything this morning that was really heavily like... I think I read a story yesterday that I thought was interesting, but it was kind of more of the same. I'm seeing more and more articles that are like... women were duped by feminism sort of thing. Which I find really interesting. Like 5 years ago, I don't think anybody would dare write an article like that. So it's just kind of curious to me that I'm seeing more and more articles like that. So I'll read this one if you want me to. You just like listening to the voice? Well, we should read this story from Zero Hedge because I think it's a big story. Okay. This was yesterday, so when they say today, they mean yesterday. Earlier today, when previewing this week's earnings by the Magnificent Seven, which account for over 10 trillion in market cap, set to report quarter one results after the close on Wednesday, Goldman's Delta One head Rich Ravatsky said that equities are being driven by one thing: AI spend, and warned that it's hard not to respect the strength of the AI bid, but the velocity has been extreme. The upside surprise versus expectations has almost entirely come from AI spend. It's the whole game. Not only is it the whole game, it is the one thing that has prevented the market from collapsing into Iran war's stagflationary black hole, with oil/product prices sucking the oxygen out of the room, Europe underperforming, and dispersion extreme. But none of that matters as long as CapEx recipients, i.e. chip and semi stocks, keep surging on hopes and expectations that the LLMs and hyperscalers will keep pumping them full of cash day after day for the unforeseeable future, which they have so far. Recall that at the end of quarter four, full year CapEx estimates soared to a mind-blowing $740 billion among just 6 hyperscalers, a number which is expected to rise to almost $1 trillion in 2027. And on top of this, trickle-down monetary waterfall is none other than Sam Altman's OpenAI, generously keying money into the overeager mouths of hyperscalers around the globe, having built up staggering purchase commitments to the tune of $1.5 trillion because there will never be enough compute. Maybe Sam's right. Perhaps there truly is an insatiable demand, an insatiable need for compute. Unless, of course, one uses Chinese LLMs and or RAM chips, both of which have a fraction of the hardware demands of the latest and greatest US technology. The problem arises when one asks if OpenAI will ever be enough revenue to satisfy these astronomical commitments. For much of the past year, there has been the core thesis behind countless AI bear cases. Now that even Michael Harnett openly calls for tech a bubble, the question is not if, but when, to which the bulls have calmly countered that as long as the drunken sailor at the helm of OpenAI keeps spending at the rate to which he has been. Oh my gosh, the screen just moved and I lost track of him. The when is as long as the drunken sailor at the helm of OpenAI keeps spending at the rate he has been, the when isn't coming anytime soon. Now, however, it appears that the when may have come much sooner than most thought. According to the Wall Street Journal, OpenAI has recently missed its own targets for both new users and revenue. Stumbles have raised concern among some company leaders about whether it will be able to support its massive spending on data centers. One of them is the company's finance chief, CFO Sarah Fryer, told other company leaders that she is worried the company might not be able to pay for future computing contracts if revenue doesn't grow fast enough. In other words, that $1.5 trillion OpenAI had pledged to spend on various data centers, GPUs, and memory chips, you can kiss all of that goodbye. Of course, none of this will come as a surprise to anyone familiar with Sam's mercurial style of allocation. Mercurial. You know what? That is a word that I don't say very often. Mercurial. I don't think I feel like I'm saying it correctly. As a reminder, when OpenAI made its $1.5 trillion flurry of deal announcements last fall, a few things were missing. Among them, how it plans to fund them, details of the bulk of the financial terms, and any mention of who was providing independent, clear-eyed advice on these complex mega transactions. The reason for that, as the Financial Times reported at the time, is OpenAI still doesn't know exactly how it will fund them. The terms mostly don't exist and advisors were overwhelmingly shunned. In fact, we learned last October Sam Altman came up with the bold vision himself and leaned heavily on a small number of lieutenants to flesh out the details and push the deals through with little involvement of bankers or lawyers. I think they should say with little involvement from bankers or lawyers. One of the brilliant side quests completed by Altman during this period of epic obfuscation and unprecedented wealth generation by Sam for himself, from a quote-unquote nonprofit thanks to nothing more than promises, was unleashing the AI circle jerk, pardon, circular financing concept, where one company would invest in its customer only to see that money flow back to it through the income statement, but not before lifting its PE by several turns. The process would be repeated countless times, lifting all AI valuations substantially, even if no revenue or cash flow was created. Eventually, virtually every company in the AI sector was wrapped up with such circular structures that tied together suppliers, investors, and customers. Yet, promises and lies can only go so far, and even the loftiest of grand schemes are eventually brought to the ground when the revenue fails to materialize, as it has for OpenAI. The result, the company's board of directors have started to closely examine the company's data center deals in recent months and question Sam Altman's efforts to secure even more computing power despite the business slowdown, the Wall Street Journal reported. The spending scrutiny is constraining Altman's once boundless ambitions ahead of a potential IPO that could take place by the end of the year. He desperately wants to go public before his former employee and arch nemesis Dario Amodei takes Anthropic public. Fryer and other executives are now seeking to control costs and instill more discipline in the business, at times putting them at odds with their CEO. This may very well mean that the money spigot that has pumped hundreds of billions in CapEx promises is about to be shut as well, leaving the entire AI ecosystem in a Wile E. Coyote moment, suspended in the air off the cliff just before gravity kicks in. In a desperate attempt to keep reality as far away as possible, the two heads of OpenAI had no choice but to deny there was any trouble In Paradise, we are totally aligned on buying as much compute as we can and working hard on it together every day. Altman and Fryer said in a joint statement any suggestion that the pair are divided or pulling back on securing new computing resources is ridiculous, they said. Well, of course they would. The alternative would be an immediate collapse of OpenAI's valuation as revenue growth suddenly collapses and takes the entire AI bubble with it. Still, with OpenAI having difficulty to generate even 2% of its spending commitments in the form of revenue, ignoring that the company will likely never be profitable, denials may be all OpenAI has left. For years, Altman has sought to lock up as much data center capacity as possible, arguing that computing shortages were the biggest constraint to OpenAI's growth. As noted above, Sam went on a deal-making spree last year that put OpenAI on the hook for some $1.5 trillion in future spending commitments and tied much of the tech sector's success to OpenAI's. In other words, if OpenAI goes down, it will take the entire AI sector with it. And since AI is now 40% of the S&P 500, you get the picture. If you don't, reread the comments from the Goldman's Delta One head. Not that anyone can blame Sam for thinking he would get away with it. For a long time, he did buy everything. Computing strategy was buoyed by ChatGPT's seemingly invincible success and had the support of both Fryer and the board. But the chat boy's growth slowed towards the end of last year, especially as Claude started stealing clients, sowing fresh doubt among company leaders about the approach. What followed next was the first domino to fall. OpenAI missed an internal goal of reaching 1 billion weekly active users for ChatGPT by the end of last year, according to people familiar with the goals. The company still hasn't announced that milestone, unnerving some investors, the Wall Street Journal reports. It also missed its yearly revenue target for ChatGPT, as well after Google's Gemini saw massive growth last year and ate into OpenAI's market share. Worst of all, for the industry, where there are still almost no switching costs, the company has also struggled with defection rates among subscribers, according to Wall Street Journal sources. Things went from bad to worse in 2026 when OpenAI missed multiple monthly revenue targets earlier this year after losing ground to Anthropic in the coding and enterprise markets, people familiar with its finances said. OpenAI recently raised $122 billion in what was the largest funding round in Silicon Valley, putting it on a more solid financial footing. But to get there, the company signed up for so much computing power that it expects to burn through that amount in the next 3 years, and that's assuming that it meets the ambiguous revenue targets. Some of the funding is also conditional and depends on specific agreements with partners, and may explain why Microsoft, which knows the company's business best of all, dramatically revised its agreement with OpenAI earlier today. To streamline costs, OpenAI recently cut non-core projects such as its video generation app Sora. OpenAI also recently released ChatGPT 5.5, a powerful model that topped a number of industry benchmarks. Then again, in an industry where the frontier jumps every 2 to 3 months, the latest model will be obsolete by July. Meanwhile, a blowback from within the user base is emerging. A number of AI companies, including Anthropic, have faced a capacity crunch for computing in recent weeks, leading to price increases for access to AI processors, outages, and rationing. The challenges have rankled power users of AI products, especially coders who have grown frustrated when AI systems have been unable to finish tasks in a way that they had come to expect from past use. That's me raising my hand. It's like all of a sudden, Clyde is a complete effing idiot sometimes. It's not that bad. He's about as bad as he was a year ago. Hold on. They want me to help with the autistic child, so I'll be back. Okay. Should I continue reading? There's still way more to this story, by the way. But we got time. In a recent memo to investors, OpenAI said that it has been able to secure more computing capacity than Anthropic, giving it an advantage in reaching users. The memo, which was viewed by the Wall Street Journal, also addressed Anthropic CEO's Dario Amode's veiled criticism of OpenAI at a recent business conference when he said some companies had pulled the risk dial too far on data center spending. In hindsight, that caution looks less like discipline and more like underestimating how fast demand would arrive, the OpenAI memo said. It would be extremely ironic is Anthropic's caution proves correct in the end, and OpenAI is forced to cancel its contracts as it simply does not have the money, but not before Masa-san implodes. In recent months, Fryer has also expressed reservations about OpenAI's plans to go public by the end of this year, according to people familiar with the matter. She has emphasized to executives and board directors the need for OpenAI to improve its internal controls, cautioning that the company isn't yet ready to meet the rigorous reporting standards required of a public company. Altman, who has favored more aggressive timeline for an IPO. OpenAI has to work through a slate of other issues ahead of a public listing. The company is currently experiencing a leadership vacuum after its second-in-command, Vidiji Simo, unexpectedly took medical leave earlier this month. But the knockout blow for OpenAI could, ironically, come from the person who funded the company in the first place back when it was still an open nonprofit. Court proceedings began today in a lawsuit by Elon Musk in which he is seeking to oust Altman and unwind OpenAI's conversion into a for-profit company. Should Musk prevail, OpenAI may or may not survive, but Sam Altman will have no choice but to move on to his next scam. Then there's a tweet, Scam Altman. They're calling him Scam Altman. Oh my gosh. That really will be like the wildest outcome if this all ends with Sam Altman in jail. Yeah. Scam Altman has incredible track record for being a con artist. I don't think anyone has a former ally turned enemy list this big directly with people he worked with. A massive new 18-month investigation dropped, revealing the full list of people who worked directly with Sam Altman and now openly say they don't trust him. They called him a liar, manipulator, scam artist, and worse. These are his co-founders, board members, top executives, and biggest partners, not random haters. Elon Musk, OpenAI co-founder, betrayed the original nonprofit Open and Safe AI mission and turned it into a closed profit machine. What he says calls him Scam Altman, and Sam Altman lies as easily as he breathes. Let me say that again. Sam Altman lies as easily as he breathes. My goodness. Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI co-founder and former chief scientist, discovered Sam repeatedly lied about safety protocols and bypassed board oversight. What he says/did compiled 70-plus pages of memos, Slack messages, and evidence proving Sam's lies, helped fire him, said he didn't think Sam is the guy who should have his finger on the button for AGI. Dario Amodi, former OpenAI president, now Anthropic CEO, left because of Sam's leadership and broken safety promises. What he says the problem with OpenAI is Sam himself. Called the company under Sam mendacious, full of lies, and compared it to big tobacco, knowingly selling something dangerous, and accused him of a clear pattern of behavior. Helen Toner, former OpenAI board member, why Sam made it impossible for the board to do its job through constant deception. What she says, he was outright lying to the board and created a toxic atmosphere of psychological pressure. Tasha McFauley, former OpenAI board member. Why? Complete loss of trust after years of the same behavior. What she says, senior leaders reported Sam cultivated a toxic culture of lying. The board, why doesn't the board do anything then? My goodness. There's all of these board members and nobody has fired him. Okay. Jan Lakey, former super alignment co-lead. Why Sam deprioritized real safety work for shiny products. What he says, resigned publicly saying he lost confidence in OpenAI leadership and that the company was losing its way on alignment. Myra Marathi, former CTO, one of Sam's closest longtime collaborators. Why lost all confidence in his leadership as they approached AGI. What she says, told insiders, I don't feel comfortable about Sam leading us to AGI, and said his playbook is to say whatever he needs to get what he wants, and if that fails, destroy your credibility. Microsoft executives, including major tensions with CEO Satya Nadella, why felt constantly misled on deals and partnerships. What they say, senior exec warned he could be remembered as a Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried level scammer. I think Sam Bankman-Fried. Hey, it's Sam and Sam. Paul Graham, why company? Hold on. Getting my autistic son to school has been a struggle. Paul Graham, Y Combinator co-founder Sam was YC president. Why? Long pattern of deception during his time running YC. What he says, privately told YC colleagues Sam had been lying to us all the time. Looped board and early employees Sam's first startup. Why? History of chaotic and deceptive behavior. What they did, employees went to the board twice trying to get him fired over a lack of honesty and shady behavior. These are his co-founders, board members, closest executives, and major partners who actually worked with him. All say the exact same things: chronic lying, manipulation, broken trust, toxic culture, scam, and deception. Tasnim News is reporting that Iran can continue oil storage for 2 months. So now Iran is basically trying to claim that they can outlast the U.S. blockade. Well, a U.S. blockade can go a lot longer than 2 months. So, let's see in 2 months how you feel about it. That's an interesting storyline. That's very interesting. Why does the U.S. think that it's only like 10 days? If Iran thinks it's 2 months. You know, I think with Sam Altman, I think that he really might be like a Sam Bankman-Fried level scammer or a Bernie Madoff. And, you know, that's kind of in the entrepreneurial world, like you kind of exaggerate a little bit. That's how you build the hype and stuff. But he is truly a sociopath. And the reason why people haven't taken it seriously is because it's always about like, well, they're not taking safety seriously enough. They're not doing this seriously enough. And this all kind of feeds into this idea that they're going to create AGI that's just going to replace all work, which is, in my opinion, a fantasy created by Sam. So he created this fantasy, sold everybody on it, and then they're all bewildered when he doesn't behave in line with that fantasy that he sold them. But they still believe it. They still think AGI is coming. I still don't. I think that it's going to dramatically change the way that we work. I think think that you could see like a crash, and then I want to buy as much AI stuff as possible because it's just going to be nothing but up from there. Who the winner's going to be, who knows? Um, but it won't be AGI. It won't replace all workers. And Steffa says this year, nah. One of the things I find kind of interesting about that line of conversation is that there seems to be disagreements about what AGI is, and like people have kind of changed the definition and yada yada yada. My definition of AGI is that a robot can basically replace all knowledge workers. I don't think that it will ever happen. The AIs might get really, really intelligent, but it will always be them working with other people. Okay, let me read this other story. You think we're already there, but it is not now. Mythos is not AGI. So, like, well, just think of it like this. You have to prompt it, right? Like, you're talking about something that, like, you can give it one prompt. We're a company that does X, and then just let it run on its own, and it will do literally everything for the company. You know, from some extent, maybe that's super intelligence, right? But really, we're saying if there's AGI, it can do everything that a person can do. Then all you have to do is scale it enough compute to handle all of the decisions in the company. So a company is just completely run by AI. So you think about an agent that runs on its own for years without serious intervention from people. Nowhere close to that. Light years from that. These things can't go more than 5 minutes without needing to be redirected. So it's certainly not going to happen this year. I would be so shocked. If I get that one wrong, don't ever let me forget it, huh? I would be the most wrong I would ever be in my life if AGI happened this year. I'm pretty confident it won't happen this year. Okay, let's read about OPEC. Just days after the UAE publicly signed liquidity concerns. Just days after the UAE publicly signaled liquidity concerns by requesting swap lines from the Federal Reserve to ease pressures on the country's banks, a major Gulf oil producer, the UAE, has decided to exit the oil cartel, an unexpected development that crossed Bloomberg headlines on Tuesday morning around 8:22 Eastern Time. So 2 hours ago? Which I didn't see oh, you know what? My oil is not... When I try and open up the NinjaTrader Control Center, that doesn't let me. Oil's right at $100 per barrel, though, so doesn't seem like this headline generated a significant move, but... Oh, NinjaTrader. The official website of the Emirates news agency broke the story, stating that the UAE has decided to exit OPEC and OPEC Plus as of May 1st, in line with the country's long-term strategic and economic plan. The move would represent a major rupture within OPEC, with direct implications for the remaining 11 members: Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Venezuela, Nigeria, Libya, Algeria, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Is that how you say it? WAM said the decision reflects the evolution of sector policies to enhance flexibility in responding to market dynamics while continuing to contribute to market stability in a thoughtful and responsible manner. OPEC was founded in Baghdad in September 1960 by Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. Its original purpose was to give oil-producing states more control over pricing and production after Western oil majors dominated global crude markets. Important to note, the UAE ranks among the top producers in OPEC, making it a major player with growing capacity ambitions. The UAE credit risk has soared since the start of the year. UBS analyst Matthew Cowley responded to the developing, telling clients this would weaken OPEC's ability to defend price floors, especially during economic slowdowns. I'm not going to read that whole note. Abu Dhabi's departure weakens OPEC's cohesion, and the oil cartel's fate now remains uncertain. Well, I would have to look at what does Saudi Arabia, what does Mr. Mohammed bin Salman think about the United Arab Emirates leaving the UAE? A question that if I was in his presence, I would be almost certainly completely terrified to ask, but I would love to hear a genuine response to that question. That's interesting. Okay, a little bit of movement here. Jamie Dimon is speaking, huh? Europe is gradually approaching a serious issue. It's not in America's best interest to allow that to occur. Deflation is his biggest worry. Thank you, Jamie. Oh my gosh. It so bothers me that everything we talk about these days is inflation. And it's like you're fighting the last war, and we're facing the most deflationary force in human history straight in the eye, and you're all worried about how we need to keep interest rates high to deal with inflation. No, man. I tell you, here's what I think is going to happen. What I think the most likely scenario is there is a crash, and then AI continues to develop, and we get very, very capable AI that doesn't do everything, but dramatically increases productivity, and this will cause deflation. And you will have to find jobs for people. You will have to make shit up. It won't just go to like basic universal income or any of that kind of nonsense. You're going to need to find things for people to do, reasons to pay them, or contributing to the economy in some way. You're going to have to be like a realignment. You can't do that realignment without putting the capital out. And if you're being stingy with the capital, then you're just going to create a depression. So the sooner we can get into an accommodative monetary stance, the better for humanity. Doesn't have to happen like immediately, but if we're still this high like 5 years from now, I'll be unhappy. I'll be unhappy. Deflation. Well, I mean, I guess if the deflation doesn't happen, then that's fine. But if like we still have high interest rates and we're seeing signs of deflation in 5 years, it's going to be a problem. And I think Jamie is 100% correct there. He knows what he's talking about. I find it interesting that the Dow Jones Index is the only index that has not been able to make new highs with all this hype. Do you think that that is maybe a bad sign? Well, so I wouldn't read it as a significant sign, but is it a bad sign? Yes. No question, it's a bad sign. The movement up has been coming from systemic flows that were short or whatever piling back in, and the AI spend. And if you lose the AI spend on Wednesday, that's going to be pretty problematic. And so the reason you're not seeing the Dow Jones reach those new highs is because it doesn't have as many of those AI hyperscalers in the index. I am using Claude to make a bot based on your video. There is LOF. I think you mean a lot of bugs. Do you have any advice? Well, so unfortunately right now still requires some degree of technical understanding to develop things. The one thing that you can do that will help is to not vibe code it, to do planning mode. So you discuss with the bot what it is that you want to do and all of the decisions that need to be made for that particular thing, right? And then you have it build from there. And then, it comes up with your thing, you try it, you write down all of the problems, give it back to it, iterate that way, right? But if it's something in NinjaTrader, you should be able to just send me the code. Send me the code on Discord, and I can probably fix it pretty quickly. Blah. I feel like Rick Sanchez. I'm all burping and everything mid-sentence. But NinjaTrader, usually doesn't get too complicated. It's just the bots aren't super great at it because they haven't been trained specifically on NinjaTrader. So you send it to me, I can probably figure out what's wrong. Especially if it's based on stuff that started in one of my videos. Well, moving along, let's look at the Koifin. Koifin. Well, rare earth is up 5%. That's not unusual, though. Some of those numbers are from dilution, and if you participated in the offering, you're not affected. Iran has no plans to leave OPEC. Nvidia down 3% today. That's not a good sign. A couple of the nuclear energy names are also down big today. Looks like SMR is giving up all of its gains, although it's still up 12% on the month. Wow, Sleep Number is up almost 60% today. What the? I gotta come see a chart of that. What the heck? Sleep Number Corporation. Woo. Come to a daily chart. Okay. So it's a pretty big up move, but it's in a much larger downtrend. That is the kind of move that they might give up a majority of their gains. It is almost turning into a penny stock. Let's come to finance. I want to see why is Sleep Number hopping. They must have had really good earnings or something. Sleep Number launches to a good life's sleep. Its newest fully integrated campaign in the next phase in its brand. That does not sound to me like something that would make a stock jump 60%. Does it sound like that to you? Sleep Number is making a bold marketing push, unveiling its first major integrated campaign. Shifts messaging from product features to customer benefits. Highlights personalized comfort and adaptability of its beds. Well, I do like their beds. That's why they're on my watch list. So. Hey, Sleep Number, if you start doing social media marketing, I would 100% push your product because I love that bed. I want a new one. I want to buy a new Sleep Number bed. I want one that's like you know, motorized, moves up and down and that sort of stuff. Okay. What else we got? Utah Tech. It looks like the small tech companies are up. Oracle's down 4%. Health Catalyst down 5%. Some of my smaller tech names kind of hurting. Supermicro down 4%. Freeport McMoran down 3%. That was copper. Got hit really hard last night, right? Kinder Morgan is the leader on the energy front, up 2%. That's actually, I mean, so like oil would be one of the ones benefiting today, but that's pretty lackluster for the oil. Maybe I need to put, I don't know, Chevron on there or something. Who would be benefiting the most? Intel down 4%. AMD down 4%. AT&T up 2.57. Coca-Cola up 6.35. Okay. So that's interesting. Johnson & Johnson up 2%. So maybe a little bit. I wouldn't call Coca-Cola a defensive, but there is maybe a little bit of a defensive rotation going on. And the VIX index is up. Well, huh? AI to help you sleep better. I wish there was something AI could do to help me sleep better. It reminds me of that whole thing where the shoe company rebranded itself as an AI company, and then the whole thing turned out to be a pump and dump. Yeah. You know what, guys? We went the whole stream without really talking about Reddit or Donald Trump's assassination. We didn't attempt assassination. We didn't really talk about it yesterday too much either. I guess I did talk about it because I complained about communists, right? Yes. In the Dad Seth era, we're going to talk about communism a lot. Because a lot of this is the lies and things that communism tells you that holds you back in life. Communism is the ideology of losers, friends. But we are out of time, so you're going to have to wait. Maybe bring it up tomorrow, huh? Well, don't do anything too crazy. Remember, we got a Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow, and all of the big tech companies are reporting tomorrow. There's some signs that those earnings will be bad, but I bet you probably won't be. I bet you it'll probably be mixed. So we'll see how the market sorts all of that out. We'll be looking at a very different picture Thursday. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.